Hey, everybody, it is Jeff and Hoy from the Appendix N Book Club.
And you're listening to episode 375 of the Gaming and BS podcast, recorded on January 17th, 2022.
Welcome to Gaming and BS, the tabletop RPG podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome back, folks. Glad to have you all here. Thank you very much for putting up with the fact that, Sean, my schedule has been snafu'd and buggered up because of real life stuff. So thank you all for checking in.
Sounds like you've had some stuff going on, Brett.
It's been a little crazy, yeah. I had to, Dad's been in and out of the hospital for a month. He's still in a physical rehab facility. His adrenal system is basically his entire endocrine system shit out on him because he's been doing the 24/7 care for my mom, who has dementia, needs to go into a home. So I got that squared away. Got everybody where they need to be, so they're in they get the right type of care. Everything's set. One of the most stressful, horrible things I've ever had to do in a very short period of time. Yeah, that sucked. That sucked pretty bad. But I was telling Sean this before we went live. It's strange how my wife, Susan, is amazing, right? She helped me get through all this stuff. She swapped care with my mom when we were sorting things out, and she was great even when my mom was like verbally abusive because she couldn't figure out what's going on. Susan put up with it the whole bit. My kids were great. My dad did the best he could from where he was in the hospital. Sean, my remote friends, like, Sean and Joe and Wayne and guys were being great, and my local friends here, my game group and stuff. But it's not unexpected, right? But I would I'd post something on Twitter or I'd get a note from a listener, a BSer, and they would say something really nice, whose girl reached out to me and a few other people have. And it was just, I gotta say, guys, it is incredibly touching. And at the risk of tearing up, I can't tell you how much that means. When shit like that happens, I have a slight inkling of how it must have felt for Sean when they had his motorcycle accident and people just said, "We care about you." I haven't met a lot of you in person and only interacted through the intertubes, right? And it was pretty fucking amazing to have folks, all the BSers who have taken the time to say something to Sean. I miss BSer Con, everything because of this. And the number of people who stopped and said something to Sean or somebody else and word got back to me or said something to me directly, that was awesome. I do not know how to express my thanks for that. I'm literally at a loss for words. And this is coming from a guy who can't shut the fuck up. So thank you very much. That was amazing. I really appreciate it. That was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people thinking of you. And
yeah, it was great, man. It really is
sympathetic to the to the situation for sure.
Yeah. So, and one of the funny things that we've talked about, like, why is gaming important, right, in our lives and all this stuff. But one of the things that for me, it was like I had a new game I want to kick off with my crew, and I told Susan, I don't know, I'll probably have to wait till like March or something. She's like, why? Why are you waiting? I said, well, a lot of stuff. And she's like, it's a Tuesday game. It's a Tuesday game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. She goes, do you have what you need? I said, well, yeah. She said, why don't you just have the guys over? If you kick it off, great, but go do something. This is, you need to try to get back and start doing stuff. You can't hide and just be depressed because it's incredibly depressing. That was wonderful. That was great. The joke was, of course, she sent my son and I, AJ, she goes, go up to the cabin in the UP. It'll be great. You can go up there and relax. I went up there twice to try to relax. And the first time, pipes froze. Second time, furnace died. So that relaxation effort failed, but I fixed shit. But I tell you, gaming was like this. Yeah, that's a good fucking idea. Let's get the boys together. So we got together and it kicked off my game, and it was wonderful. And it was, 3-4 hours of nothing else matters but this fun right here, right now. It was the escapism, the I don't know. It was just wonderful. It was this wonderful piece of creativity and co-creation with all my friends and stuff. It was just wonderful. It was wonderful. And I missed I miss BSRCon because of that. I'm like, man, I really wish I could have been there to game with those folks, you know? So anyway, hopefully things in my life are starting to mellow back out so I can get back to some level of whatever the new normal is. So I think we'll be all right. Anyway, Sean, how the hell are you, man? Anything, what have you been gaming since I haven't seen you in God knows how long?
Yeah. And to add on to what you were saying, as somebody would say, it's no wonder we play these games.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yes. Yeah. It is. It's a wonderful constant of fun.
Yeah.
And camaraderie and just fellowship that happens when you've got a good gaming group and good friends like BSers, you know, that kind of rally around and cheer for you when you're going through the hard times. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I am no longer in Cyberpunk Red.
Did you drop out or did they cancel the game?
We were at an impasse. Nobody was, Jimmy was like, how do you think the game's going? You know, do we want to continue with Cyberpunk Red or do we want to try something else?
They're like 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down type of thing.
It was okay. But what they didn't hear was, it's awesome. Let's keep playing. So they decided, you know, so Jimmy fired up a Discord server. We start talking a little bit about it. And they were going to play Shadowrun. So I'm like, I'm out.
So let me ask you this now. When did you like the game? When I'm talking about the game, the mechanics, the system, all that, the setting and whatnot, was that fun enough that you'd be like, hey, I'd try that again, but perhaps with a different story or a different approach? Did you have enough fun with the system that you're interested in it again? Or was it all kind of meh to you?
I would probably give it another fair shake. I wasn't turned off by the system necessarily.
Okay.
There's a lot of tables and a lot of not tables like random roll tables. It's a very a lot of skills, man. Like if you are not a skill monkey, there's a lot. Like
okay.
A ton, like more than Call of Cthulhu skill charts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's broken down into different areas like social skills, you know, combat.
Oh, wow.
Skills.
Tons of
and
fun.
Yeah. So it was fun because it wasn't an RPG or a setting campaign that I would have experienced in another game. I mean, it was, because it's not horror, Call of Cthulhu, right? You got the role play piece of it and investigating. So Cyberpunk Red can be, you know, sure there might be some hacking and there's combat, but where are you going to go with the story? So I mean, us playing, you know, half the members were members of a band, and then we have a sound engineer and a social media person, and then the manager. Like,
I think it's open-ended enough that you could go back and say, all right, how do we do, you know, Neuromancer, pick a cyberpunky, old school cyberpunky thing and translate it over or something. But I'll tell you, man, one of the things you said there, I think I have not a mantra, but I'm taking it on is more like I need to give games more than one shot.
Yeah, for sure.
I've played something before and said, oh, that game, blah, I didn't like it. And people who've listened to the show for a long time probably heard me say that I played that once or whatever. So I can tell you I played 4th edition. I played 4th edition once. 4th edition D&D. I did not have fun. However, that said, the circumstances at the time probably played a lot into why it wasn't as much fun. Right? I would, if someone said, hey, I really love 4th edition, let me run you through one shot or something like that. Really, let me highlight and do. I'm in. I would try it again. You know, I've said I don't like it, but I've been thinking more and more about that. And you saying that again just kind of brought it to my mind. I think it needs at least 2 tries, and sometimes it's like 2 tries, one with this game group and one with a different GM or a different game group. And there's so many variables within like how a game is presented to you and how you experience it and so forth. So it feels to me like I need 2 at minimum to really see if I grok it or like it or whatever. So, okay. So you're out of that.
Yeah.
Did you spin up another Forbidden Lands game? Is that what happened?
I
saw
did.
something.
Yeah. So I told the group. Well, here's the thing. So we posted in Discord,
Mhm.
and there was a kind of a lull. So a couple of us weighed in, like with our thoughts, and that group, did mention like playing face to face, and I'm like, look, if you guys want to play face to face, that's totally cool, but don't hold out for me because I might be indefinite. There's no sign on the horizon of me going face to face playing RPGs anytime soon.
You've got a situation that's not a good call. Fair enough.
And so if that's it, just call it a day. No love loss.
Yep.
And then I said, well, and I got games to run for BSers. So I have some interest in Forbidden Lands. So if you guys are interested in playing with us in Forbidden Lands and these, for lack of better, strangers to them, then, you're welcome to do that. So I did that, and now that's session 0 kicked off. So this Thursday, as I record this, which is not January, like Hoy said, because we had some postponements and went every other week. We're recording this February 14th, Valentine's Day, because I had to profess my love for Brett on this day.
Yeah, well, it helped. We had to.
And so, we can't record. We can't not record on Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
And so now I'm all distracted. You got me all flustered, Brett. But I said, if you guys want to play with Forbidden Lands, you're welcome to do that. And they're like, oh, there's a little bit of interest, but yeah, no, I'm going to pass.
Not enough. Okay.
So this week, again, going back to the date schedule thing, I've got my standard Forbidden Lands group. And then the week after that will be the 4 other new players to Forbidden Lands. A 4 to 6 session arc is what I'm probably going to do. The purpose of learning the game and then doing a little bit of play, right? But it's not going to be like this ongoing campaign forever.
So I'm thinking one of the things I want to talk to you about, like offline from here, is like some T-shirt ideas, right?
Sure.
Because I've got my my Streets of Avalon one. I want to make that happen.
Yeah.
With Vera's crew, and I have people throwing out the hey, Brett's mom likes Merp type of thing. I think that would be fun. I think that would be awesome to do, if nothing else. Kind of in homage to my mom and all the cool things that she basically, it's because of her that I came.
Yep.
And I think we need to have a OGFL T-shirts that certain people who are playing, who are the OG Forbidden Lands crew with you, that they get to have, or something along those lines. I think that's gotta
maybe
might need to do something.
I might have like a 4, like I think the sales will be limited to like maybe 2 people, but whatever.
Well, even if it says like OG and there's like has our handles on the back or something.
Sure.
So there we could have some fun with that. But okay, cool, very good.
So that's that, and then I'm playing in a feng shui game on Sundays for probably I think like 3 sessions is what Kyle's going to run. So we just kicked that off. I'm playing Maxine Max Stonewall. I always thought you were a dude. Yeah, I get that. PI, big bend on the Yakuza, organized crime in Macau casino.
Nice.
Got a kind of a mission with these other members of the party. Like pretty interesting dynamics. So it should be
How are you liking that?
Well, there isn't much to the game so far, like mechanic wise.
I'm just saying you were going to run a Feng Shui game, at some point, and now that you're playing it, I'm curious. I'll be great if you haven't dug into it, hardcore mechanics like we can table this. But I'm really interested to see what you think as you get going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Kyle's got us doing a few checks here and there and explaining how this and that is how it works, but. There really isn't a ton of it now. Once combat and stuff, you start getting into the shticks, then it'll be fun because the shticks are all these. They're in Feng Shui. It's an archetype you pick. You don't create a character, although I think there's rules you can. And then that archetype has shticks, which are kind of like feats in some other games. And then you have there's a very small amount of skills. That's kind of, and you roll and it's a plus or minus thing. So you're rolling 2 different dice, and then they're adding or subtracting each other out, and then you get your result. And so there's a DC target number, and then that's kind of it. So, I think you add it to your base, if I'm not mistaken. So it's so far. I mean, if it sounds he's got it kind of teed up really well, and I think it's going to go pretty well and fun.
Nice.
And I think after I know this, then if it's the type of game I would want to run for 1-shots, because or even like a 2 or 3 shot piece, because the premise is so just off the wall, right? It's big.
It's cinematically big.
Yes,
yeah.
It's like a scene, and you're gonna do all this crazy stuff, and it happens, and it's like, turn Bollywood and Big Trouble in Little China, and just go bonkers. Awesome. And that's like, awesome. Yeah, that's good times, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am really impressed that you are still digging Forbidden Lands. And I say that because you have some of the most like, ooh, shiny, right?
Oh, I got a lot. I got a lot of products coming.
I know you do.
I already have.
But the fact but it's like at this point, it's like it's like your security blanket. Oh, oh, wow. Okay.
This is Index RPG, so this showed up, right?
Okay.
I got a butt ton of other stuff that's probably gonna, fall once the logistics of the world come together and everything gets unstuck.
Yeah. Well, I've got Dave Beatty's.
Yeah.
That game's gonna land on me. There's a couple other things here and there, but yeah, it's gonna be. I forgot to mention this. I started a Vaesen game with my kids.
Oh, fantastic!
Oh my God, are they loving it? It is going really, really well. Smooth, easy. One of the things that I'm running the adventure in the back of the book because I'm like, hey, let's try this. I already found a few things. Speaking of like back when we talked about like rough drafts and stuff. Yeah, holy crap! I pulled a couple triggers way too soon. I'm like, oh fuck! Oh shit! Yeah, wow! Whoa, boy, that's I totally stomped on XY. So I had to not retcon because we already talked. I'm not necessarily retconning per se because it hadn't hit the table yet, but I had to go back through and make some notes for myself. Like, oh yeah, adjust, because it's a published adventure, and I wanted to make sure that I held to the continuity, the verisimilitude. I wanted it to be believable and to stick. But they're totally digging it. They love it. The fear, the way that works, how they're figuring things out. They like all the different mechanic pieces of it. So it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. That was another little kind of escape from the everyday stuff that was eating my life. My wife sent me downstairs with my 2 kids and said, go play a game with your kids. That was great. And we've got more to go on that one. We got about halfway through, I think. One more session, they might be done there. Then we'll see if they want to keep going with it. But they're really loving the fact that it's heavy investigation, the mythology components of it, and they don't know all the critters.
Oh, sure.
It's not AJ's much like myself, where once you get a monster manual, flip. But this is mythology, and they act differently, and it's a different feel, and they're really digging it. They're really, really liking it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So
cool.
After this is done, or I get a couple more sessions in on it, I'll set up a Vaesen review, if you will, or a talk through of what I'm liking, what I'm not, and so on. But at this point, it's hit every note I'd hoped it would. It was only one session, to be clear, but yeah, that's a good game. Working really, really well.
Really does some good stuff, man.
I tell you, you know how I am, right? I want to have fast. I want the system to work quick. I don't want to fuck around. I want to go bam, 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 and make I don't want to keep looking at mechanics. I want the core to work, and the core mechanics are just fucking cruising, man. I'm loving it. So much fun. So I feel stupid that I missed out on the Kickstarter for the British Isles that they did, but I'm like, you know what? I will get that once it hits the stores. I'll get myself a copy. It's going to go in the collection. It's going to have to be there because it's so goddamn good. But anyhow, I think that's about it for that stuff. Oh, EverCon is coming up. evercon.org. Check that out. My daughter, Lana, is running her game there. She's got a D&D game that she put together. She had a friend of hers over yesterday, and she ran it. I helped her. I'm helping her figure out the plot and the pacing and stuff.
Yeah.
She thought she had it nailed down pretty good after our conversation. She ran it yesterday for AJ, their mutual friend Connor, and me as players, and it went way too fast. And she was talking about, she was a little disappointed. I let her calm down. We talked about it later, and I said, so you're running into the same problem I actually have now. And one of those problems is you have some kick-ass content and some really cool clues and some really neat things because she's cooked up some great stuff. I said, but you're pushing everybody to the cool stuff. You have to let them get there. You have to let them take their time. You have to learn how to figure this out. So we're going to sit down this weekend. We're going to go through some bullet points like in this area, ask for this skill check, have this NPC encounter, let it go for this long, and then do this and this and this. It's a little, how do I say this? It's not like I'm not trying to do paint by numbers. She's a smart kid. I am definitely not talking down to her. What I want to do though is arm her with enough advice and ideas that she can actually take action on, that she understands, and that when something starts to happen, she can either shortcut the conversation because it's not working well, or prolong it because she's got a 3-hour slot. She's like, well, I don't want it to take like an hour and a half or just a half hour. I'm like, no, you can't. So you don't want to do that, but you also don't want to force it too long, force it too short. So anyway, I think depending how we get through that, it might be worth me taking the stuff that I've helped her with, Sean, and then bringing it back here just to say this is what I did with her. And then I can report back and did it work for her or not. But I thought it might be interesting to share with BSers and say, I don't know if this has legs for anybody else, but this is what I did to help my kid put shit together. So anyway, more to come on that as it happens. But anything else, man?
I don't think so.
All right, let's see how far we go. Let's go.
All right, let's get into...
Dude, we're a half hour in. This is going to be a long one.
Yeah, it is. Let's get into random encounter.
Just warning everybody right now.
Right. Segment of the show where we field voicemails, emails, comments from social media. I've got a few this week, and some of them are a little older because of our schedule, but, what are you going to do? So, yeah, what do you want to do?
You go first.
Want me to go first? All right.
Yeah, that's classic. That's how we always do it.
First one is from Edwin. Emails us on episode 374, The Rough Draft. Hey, B and S. I need some thoughts on this episode.
Had some thoughts on this episode. Thank you. They don't seem important or even useful, but I feel the need to express myself, internet age and all. So I dislike the word choice draft. Sean, I think I felt your unease too. I would choose notes, maybe. The scenario is an idea for what might happen at the table. The word draft implies that things will get reworked. This is fine if you're testing something for publication or running multiple times with the idea of improving your notes and consequently the experience at the table. I think that what I really disliked was the way the conversation started, where it sounded like Brett was trying to say that what happens at the table is a draft. In my opinion, what happens at the table is opening night, the real deal. The scenario might be rough notes or it might be a draft, depending on whether it's going to get reworked. One of the concepts we often discuss at Frog God Games is the idea of GMs fixing it at the table. While many GMs buy adventures with the idea of modifying them or using them as parts cars or whatever, we need to be selling a good product. And in my opinion, a good product is one that could be used basically as is. If we miss a common or likely response, that is an error, and we definitely make them. There are also reactions that should not necessarily need to be predicted. If I design a bridge, that are certain uses and misuses I need to consider and others that I don't. However, most GMs prepping scenarios are not professional RPG producers and should allow themselves much more slack in terms of how good a job they did during prep and forestalling issues.
And more importantly, they are their own customer. If the GM is happy with the quality of the prep they produce, that's all that matters. The GM can choose a detailed, thought out prep with the idea that they like to stick to their prep, or they could choose 3 words on an index card and wing it. And if a publisher is clear about what they're selling, they could try to sell 3 words on an index card. One thought for Alana, who started this whole topic. If she really wants to be a writer of stories, she might think of the game at the table as a draft. One possible instance between her initial concept, the scenario, and a story she might one day actually want to write. Shout out to my excellent GMs and fellow players at BSRCon. I had a hoot forgetting about it and exploring the world of Coyote and Crow. Cheers, Edwin.
That is good thoughts, Edwin. I really appreciate that. I think, and sometimes there's, words have power. We've talked about that many times, and some things have a connotation, negative or a good connotation, positive or negative, obviously. And I think the word notes might be better here because you're right. If I use the term like they're your notes, right? And I like the fact, I was getting a little nervous, quite frankly, Edwin, as Sean was reading, I'm like, uh-oh. He's going into the whole, this is what published adventures, blah, 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 blah. But then I'm like, aha, he says very specifically, GMs are not professional RPG producers, should allow themselves much more slack. I think what you're saying there is what I was trying to say, probably less articulately, because there's a concept in my head. And I appreciate this right up here, man, because this is very, very helpful. I think if the term draft rubs someone the wrong way, like, ooh, I don't like that, it doesn't seem to capture the essence of it, I think notes is totally legit, man. I think that's a good way to see it, and to realize that, yeah, you can what is at the table is opening night for a play, right? Whether it's a well-written play, lots of notes, lots of spike marks on the floor, all that good stuff, or is it more of 3 notes on an index card, 3 bullet points, and then you wing it from there? Okay, cool. I like that. I like that idea of then having it as notes. It's still something you can update, change, modify, whatever the case it is. I like that. I think that's a damn good thought there, dude. I like that very much. Thank you. Appreciate the time you put into that.
Yeah, thanks, Edwin.
All right, what do we got next? E. Armstrong comments on pre-show and handling multiple expectations at the table. On the debate before the show, I see both sides of the argument. Unfortunately, I have met more people who are willing to ignore most effects or things your character feels in D&D, unless I, as the DM, hit them with 100 damage in one swing. The difference between an effect doing the frightened condition and you take 100 damage is a very stark difference in how players mostly react. The frightened condition usually gives, oh no, I'm frightened. Anyway, descriptions and wrapping it in the fiction is what's happening helps, but it doesn't hit the urgency of the situation. The you take 100 damage causes the clutching of pearls and a stunned silence around the table. And it's not considering damage resistance, rage, spells, and that divide damage between players, etc., but the effect is immediate. Of course, this is different table to table. I still lean towards Sean's side of dread is built to make a physical act connect to the player's feeling in the fiction. The player knows if they knock over the tower, their character dies immediately. But it's also nice to do 100 damage in a single swing. I think there's something to be said for that, depending on the game you're playing. And that's why sometimes the methods, the policies, the different tools or things that Sean and I are talking about, it's hard to say one thing works for all game systems, right? Because it's really hard to do that. Because in a D&D game, if your players are if they're hit point focused, right? Like, hey, I didn't take any damage, I have a condition, big fucking deal. In another game, though, conditions mean everything. I mean, in Vaesen, for instance, conditions are bad. That's not good. You're losing stuff, right? Even in World of Darkness, you take enough damage, you start losing dice off at pools. It has a very mechanical impact when you have a condition or a thing hit you like that. But yeah, in D&D, 100 points of damage, especially depending on the type of game you're running, the people you're playing with and so forth, can have a much more holy shit moment than oh, I'm scared, big deal. Yeah, all right, so I act frightened for a while. Yeah, it doesn't always, depending on the players and what you're doing, that doesn't always grab people. But you smack someone for a shit ton of damage in D&D, yeah, that you pay attention to that. Everybody does. Good point.
Yeah, thanks, E. Appreciate
Back to
it.
you, sir.
All right. Stefan Dragonspawn emails us on Rival Adventuring Party. Hello and happy 2022, my sexy BSers. This time I chose to write in and avoid getting cut off by the voicemail, nor just ramble on. When you boys were talking about whether or not you consciously avoided inserting rival adventurer groups in your games, it reminded me of one shot that I ran using Savage Worlds. I called it the Great Space Trucker Scavenger Hunt, where the PCs were the crew of a light freighter hired to retrieve 3 things in order to win a lucrative contract and be part of a big party to celebrate. And with such a hunt, you need adversaries, competition of some kind. So I did create 2 rival groups who were part of the hunt. It was very tongue-in-cheek, great fun, and not one bit serious. One rival group was loosely inspired by the Royal Flush villains from DC Comics, Ace, King, Queen, Jack, and 10. And the other had a captain that was a big burly man who liked to dress up as a Shirley Temple named Sweet Gary. His crew were very much like Clone Wars battle droids, and his ship was called the Good Ship Lollipop and was painted bright pink.
I want to play this game. That just sounds. Knowing that it's like off the hook craziness like that. Oh my god. Anyway, keep going, Sean.
Things went really weird after that.
It got weirder? They got weirder than that. All right, keep going. All right, right there. You got it. Damn.
Since my players took the pre-gens and gave them all a twist to them as well, being a sci-fi story, I wasn't too worried about magic items, but the PCs did defeat Gary and commandeered his ship, thus making it easier to defeat the second group. Also, creating NPCs in Savage Worlds is easy peasy. Since this was a one-shot, I wasn't worried that the PCs would become too powerful or too rich either. But the concerns I've had on the rare times where I ran 3.5 edition and introduced the rival group was pretty much what Brett described. Write up all the stats, the gear, the spells, magic goodies, and of course some tactics for them. It was a daunting task. Also, someone once said, I forget who, players can focus on their single character and hone their abilities and strengths to a razor's edge of efficiency and learn to work as a team to rival Navy SEALs. Whereas the DMGM must know all the PC's abilities, those of the monsters and NPCs as well as backstory, the environment, and 101 other details. A tall order for one person to create a challenge for 3+ players sitting across the table who only need to worry about what their character will do and maybe work with his allies. I often think that any RPG that suggests that PCs encounter NPCs groups should have some pre-generated stat blocks of various levels or XP numbers if the system isn't level-based, ready for the GM to use and tweak as needed. So when Sean mentioned using the PCs as templates for rivals, I've used that trick once or twice too. But I've always feared that the heroes would look at those rivals as walking treasure ripe for the pickings. So I've shied away from them. Monsters of one type or another seem much easier to run by comparison. As usual, keep up the good work and continue to be the positive force in the hobby. Love you guys. Have a gay day. Regards from Stefan Dragonspawn.
That's awesome. So after we had this episode and I mentioned that I had not used an NPC part, I couldn't remember when.
Yeah.
2 things hit me while I was thinking about, hey, shit, I'm going to record tonight, you know? First one is that, one of the cool things about Pathfinder and other game systems that were very crunchy, you know, when I was running Pathfinder or D&D 3, stats and feats, it felt very complicated. I got my hands on the Pathfinder NPC book, right? Got a PDF copy of it. Right there, I went, aha, if I want a rival adventuring party, I could go through and pick them. They're all pre-gen. That was wonderful, wonderful tool. So that took a lot of the legwork out of it for me if I wanted it. And I did use them periodically, but as singular bad guys. Thinking now, I could have gone back and built an adventuring party with that really no work involved. The other thing I did do, it finally dawned on me again earlier today, was that I did have a rival adventuring party once, and here's how I did it. I was running my an Avalon game, my original Avalon game, and it was the guys had gone way the hell out into the Outlands, way far and gone, and Lenny and Beta's two characters, Newton Beecher, were out doing something. We're in this adventure. I'm like, okay, I need a rival adventuring group, some badass NPC motherfuckers. I could really task them. So I went to Alpha and Zave and said, I need you guys to make these characters. You're going to build this adventuring party for me, and you're going to run them. They said, okay. So I gave it to some other players to play against the players who were in the official campaign. And then what happened? Then we had, so it was anyway, larger organized effort around who would play what, when, and how. But when at the start of all things, when they encountered the bad guys, the other NPC adventuring party, two of my players had already sat down, made up the NPCs, and they played them. So Alpha had this character, this character, this character. They each had 3, if I'm remembering correctly, that they broke up and used, and they understood their tactics because they built the characters and they could play the tactics. And I gave them, their question to me was, what's our goal? And I said, well, your goal is to stop them. Like, this person's goal is at any cost. This person is take a prisoner. This person is, I gave them some high level stuff to do. And then they played those characters directly towards that. I just adjudicated who was where or whatever and moved characters and made sure the rules were followed and so on. I was more like a referee really at that point because it was two characters. And then would that work for everybody? Don't know. But I was pretty proud because I was a little concerned. I'm like, ooh, this could lead to some like friendship angry, right? Because what happened with Beecher died. He got shot and was killed. And it turned into this effectively a wonderful, very emotional event that lent itself to being a one-of-a-kind painting that's on my game room wall. Like I've showed that to some BSers in the past. The death of Beecher. But it was, everybody was really grown-up adult and went, wow, this is like a cool story moment that this thing happened and so on and so forth. And revenge occurred and all that good stuff. But anyway, short version, I outsourced it. Like I did my Star Wars PC, Sean. I just outsourced that shit. Somebody else make me that. But it worked really well because it was a complicated thing. I'm like, I got 2 guys in my crew who aren't in this current game that love making PCs and like playing them. They have a good time. I'm like, hey, here's your specs. Get to work. And they did all the legwork for me. It was awesome.
Yeah, creates crew. Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And Stefan, that is some damn fine sounding gaming right there, man. The Great Space Trucker Scavenger Hunt. Fuck, I'd play that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like I mean, there's Rocky Horror, but I don't think it's a match for that game. Like
no.
Not even, no way.
No way. That's awesome. I love Stefan. He's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Beer Leaguer's up next. He comments on episode 363. How do we organize as GMs? Going back a little bit here. Great topic. Asking a question. How does one organize pre-constructive narrative while having the flexibility to pivot away from a linear line of thinking? My answer has typically been to be creative. Oh, good God. Starting over. My answer has typically been to create a highly visual, large mind map that combines a standard graph paper map, rooms, traps, tunnels, and so forth,
hey,
with
Siri,
setting details for the GM's eyes only, right there inside the spaces they describe. Those details can then be woven into any inquiry the players have. Then, with as much room as I have left, the passage that's read aloud to the players is squeezed in underneath. Other details, random tables, monster stat blocks, etc. Either nestle alongside these spaces in the margins or live in separate page that matches the numbers of the room. But this mind map is very limited, principally by space, but also its rigidity. It doesn't lend itself to improvisation. My mind is literally and figuratively boxed in to a grid. It makes for beautiful illustrated and tight layout that I enjoy designing, with the ambition to parlay that visual into a published piece down the road. But in the end, it limits my creativity more than I'd like. So I'm seeking a more interactive tool the next time I GM. I'm intrigued by Notion, which Sean has mentioned, since it brings a visual approach to project planning, as many bells and whistles to both stay visually organized, but also access information quickly. That's likely what I'll explore the next time I run a game, since my laptop is always present at the table anyway and connected to Wi-Fi. Aside from a tool like Notion, Google is the second most important resource for quickly looking up rules or sharing a visual of a baddie, mook, or setting. Yours from the city of brotherly love, Beer Leaguer. You know, Beer Leaguer, I'll tell you, man, the mind map, I think one of the things that you could do with it, I've only dabbled with mind maps, but here's a thought. And you tell me or anybody else tell me if you think this is BS-ery or if it's got any legs to it. You could rework the mind map post a session, as in like your homework. So you've got a mind map, get it. Players do X, Y, and Z. What does that do to your mind map? You know, what's mind map version 1, version 2, version 3 after each session, or at certain key points when you're like, wow, I'm feeling hemmed in by this document, is what I'm hearing you say and when I'm reading this. So how do you knock the walls down, redo the thing? And it might only be a couple changes. It might be like, well, you know, depending on the mind mapping tool you're using, you could grab a bubble and shift it or draw a different connection and kind of see what that blows out into. But anyway, it might be interesting. Don't know how much work this would be for you, but once you've got it plotted, after a session or two, go, you know, this crew has done a whole bunch of crazy ass shit. Boy, I'm feeling like my rigid plan isn't working for me. How would you reorganize it to account for the crazy shit they've done and make it so that it's going to function the way you want it to? Just a thought. I don't know. Like I said, I've only dabbled with mind mapping tools, but I'm willing to bet that's something you could potentially pull off. Don't know if that's got legs or not, Beer Leaguer, but let me know what you think. You good with that, Sean?
I am good with that.
Awesome. I think one of the cool parts about, he mentions laptop at the table. I know you and I ages ago talked about technology at the table, you know, way back in our infancy.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was with the first 10 episodes, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like forever fucking go. If the handiness of having that technology there in Google, either a Google Doc or sometimes like AD&D, you know, type 4 demon picture, right? So you can show people or whatever it is you're looking up. There can be some power there. Actually, in the game I'm running right now, using Google Maps has been very, very helpful. Just to show people this is the town, this is the place, and this is where stuff is. It's a pretty helpful tool sometimes. So anyway, good stuff, Beer Leaguer. Thank you for writing in. I hope that, I don't know if my idea, like I said, makes any sense. Let me know what you think. It might be crap. Who knows? You ready, sir?
I am, but I think I forgot to put the intro for the main topic on here. That's fine.
Tisk.
I'll do it afterwards.
You'll do it post.
Let's get into the main topic.
All right.
Blah, 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 da, da, da. Annoying horn song.
Scratch.
What do we do? Here's a record scratch. We could do it ourselves, Fred.
we just did.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Take that, print it, copy. Done. Moving on.
We'll keep it
I
in.
only do one take. Sorry.
What are we talking about this week, Brett?
So what I want to talk about is the concept of the disbelief, belief, verisimilitude. When we talk about making settings world believable for ourselves and our players, helping keep that verisimilitude alive and keep it working, I'm wondering what, like, between you and I, Sean, and then getting input from BSers as we go through comments and such, what does it take for us to believe, right? What about do we know what our players in our game want? Are there different things that different players might need? We've talked about that. How do you handle different expectations and stuff? And I know at my table, depending what I'm running, I can tell from certain players, they like a certain type of description. Other people are like, ooh, images. Images are big for them. If I can flash a map or a tactical something, or even a whiteboard drawing that sucks them in, and so on. There's different levels of things that help people believe in that shared imaginary place and the shared imaginary people that they're running into and stuff. And I think there is a anyway. Before I go too far down the road, so Sean, do you get where you tracking me here? What I'm talking about? He's staring at me blankly.
Yeah.
So Sean, let me do this for you. So if I'm gonna play Cyberpunk Red with you,
yeah,
or Vason, are there certain things that help you believe in the setting of the world? Like if I said, hey, we're gonna play Forbidden Lands. Make a character. Character's name is, Jimmy, Billy, and Willie. And we do this, and we just roll dice. Do you need players and yourself to act in character? Does that help you immerse? And maybe this is an immersion question, but what does it take for you to believe that the thing you're doing is real? All right, it's a pretend, made-up thing, but what makes it more to you than, say, a board game, right? Because if you're playing a board game, you're like, okay, I'm moving pieces, moving pawns. It's not real, it's very board gamey. And we're playing RPGs, though. There's this sense that there's a shared pretend reality. There are no dragons. There are no dungeons, right? How the hell do I get you, Sean, to buy into the fact that those things exist? Do you need a well thought out and detailed world book? Do you need tons of documents for you to read? What helps Sean grab onto that?
Oof. I think if you use the cat's method of pitching the game, then I would say it's the tone piece.
Okay.
Maybe there's a comparatively speaking analog to what you're trying to portray.
Is that what you need, or what you think would help other people?
Well, I guess that's. Are you asking me as a player?
I'm asking
Probably
you as
a player,
Sean,
right?
As Sean.
As Sean. Okay.
Yep. You're gonna play Avalon with me. Do you care? Does it help you to know that? Oh, this is the guy who wrote the book. Does it help you to know that? Oh, there's a whole setting book. Believe it or not, I've met people like this who are like, oh, this is a homebrew. Yeah, don't buy it. Oh, it's a published setting. Oh, this is good. Like if it's written down, there's like a level of it ratchets up on I'll hang my disbelief on this higher hook than I would regularly, right?
Yeah.
I don't find fault in either one. It's weird to me, but if that's what you need, because so let me kick this to you. So for me, I've thought about this for a bit today before the show and stuff, and I was thinking about it previously. And for me, I can I want to know the game system, right? And I want to have some concept of the types of characters that will fit the adventure in front of me. I want to understand, like, hey, what are we doing? We're going to play Star Wars. Great. You know me, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I'm like, okay, so what are we playing, Nick, Sean? What are we going to do in Star Wars? Well, you're going to be rogues and ruffians. Okay, that helps. I need a theme. I need an overall concept that I can bite into, and stuff that when I'm making my character, I know this is what we're going to be, what I'm going in for. For Call of Cthulhu, for instance, what's the time zone? What's the time hit, or the timeline time zone? That's stupid. What's the timeline? Are we 20s, 30s, 50s, modern times? Is it Delta Green? Give me something about the game that you're going to be running, and then I'm good. I can get in there. But if you just said, hey, we're going to play D&D, okay, what are we playing? I'm just picking on D&D. Well, it'll be a dungeon crawl. Okay, does it matter what I make or what I do? No. It's going to be old school dungeon crawl. Start at the beginning of the dungeon and walk your way through. Some people are totally good with that. I look at that and say, I don't need to role play. This is just an exercise. It changes my mind. I don't feel the same level of verisimilitude. I don't have the same feeling of believability in it, because it feels to me like none of that matters. Like it's just an exercise, and we're going to game tonight because it's game night. So let's play this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't fall too terribly outside those lines at all. I think the tone and the comparing and the setting up of the game it's got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be kind of mandatory, or else you get this weird wackiness where somebody joins the group and they're playing Toon, the RPG, and everybody else is like, I'm playing, the X-Files. So
yeah, why are you throwing pies? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. So there is even in Star Wars, I'm glad you brought that up, because you could say, we're going to play Star Wars. People are like, Star Wars. Yeah. Got it. Star Wars. But when you think about the three different books of Star Wars, Force and Destiny, Edge of the Empire, and Age of Rebellion, they're three different things kind of in the Star Wars universe. So it's important when you say, hey, you're going to play Edge of the Empire, you're playing scoundrels, bounty hunters, opportunists, Outer Rim.
No Jedi?
Right.
No Jedi. Oh. Yeah.
Or you can, but that's the question, right? Somebody's going to want to know, like, well, can I play a Jedi in there? Because Ben Kenobi was a Jedi, and he was, like, out in Tatooine, and I want to play that guy. You know?
Exactly.
Which is fine. So you have to kind of set that tone piece. So when, Forbidden Lands, if I'm gonna run it, I mean, session 0 last week, these guys got to know it's about rogues and raiders in a cursed land. You're not playing heroes. You can have a patron if you want, but that's not going to be. It's not the thing, right? You're out for yourself, not trying to get treasure to take back to the Duke or Duchess. Man, you're making it out on your own. And if that's not, because that's where you start getting into fantasy, which is really kind of sticky widget because people play fantasy in different ways. Like if you play in Eberron, it's different than Forbidden Lands, but they're still fantasy. So
that's different than Greyhawk. It's different than Lankmar. It's different than whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, urban and not urban. Like you're going to play in Streets of Avalon. That's different than hex crawling across the wilderness. Like it's just so. And if you use books, comics, movies, TV shows to compare those, I think it gets many people at least close enough onto the same page that it doesn't get too crazy and out of control.
So a good, so I'm hearing you say a good kickoff session with proper boundary. What's in, what's out, kind of the bumpers, that session 0 stuff. I'll tell you one of the things that I found is that I have my buddy Lenny. So if I sit down and we say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Okay. So my buddy Alpha kicked off a Warhammer, the latest edition game the other day. Like a few weeks back. Christ, I can't remember. It was sometime early January. Anyhow, point being, we sat down, we play it, and we knew it was going to be first session. We had our characters. We had a pretty good idea what we're doing, why. He gave us a ton of background, a lot of backstory. Great, blah, blah, blah. Kind of the adventure and inciting incident begins. We get through it. Like, okay. And we knew full well that we'd be testing out rules and doing this, that, and the other thing. When we got done, my buddy Lenny got a hold of me and said, we need a goal. And I'm like, aha, this is what Lenny needs to believe in this. Because his character doesn't have any real goal. My character is a troll slayer, so I have a goal. I'm going to die gloriously in battle. That's easy. That's my goal. It's written right there on his forehead, basically.
On his forehead? You know? Really? Well, that's like hardcore, man.
Troll slayers are tattooed, orange-haired. I don't know if you know anything about the Warhammer world. They're insane.
Oh.
Their whole thing is to die gloriously in battle. They've got big, spiky orange mohawks. They're heavily covered in tattoos. They wear no armor and try to die gloriously. I've
seen that guy on the cover of like 3rd edition or whatever.
Yes.
2nd edition.
Yeah.
That one guy, yeah.
Yeah, Gotrek. Yeah. So point is Lenny looked at that and said, we need something. We need a goal. We need some kind of something to do. And I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, I said, well, it's like a big city, kind of like Avalon. And he said, well, hang on. He said, in Avalon, though, we always each individually have something to do. And he told me, he said, every time we set it up, you make sure that our characters, what's your plan? What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And that's something that Lenny needs to grab onto the world and really give a shit about the character. And that's kind of when it's real, believable, the verisimilitude, and you feel like you're part of something. For Lenny, his character needs a goal, either an individual goal, and he may pick that up later on. Or in this case, he's saying very directly to me, let's you and I help the group create a group goal that we're after. That'll give us all a focus. And then from there, we can develop and build and so forth. So for him, and my buddy Nick actually is much the same, is that every time he makes a character, regardless of what the bumpers are, whatever, he has a goal. His character needs to have something. Lost love, I've got an ex-wife. I've got a kid who hates me. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. He's got something that he's trying to do. I think that is, for me, I don't need that. I'm fine figuring that out after. I need the bumpers, as you talked about. Like, hey, you told me what I can do. I'll make my character, and I leave some space in it, excuse me, to decide, okay, I'll develop a goal, a reason, a something once I see what everybody else is doing. I'll kind of tack in so I can make sure I'm gelling fine. But the other guys in my group, what they really like to do is they like to have a personal goal that's sometimes very long reaching. I want to own a castle. I want my own goddamn starship. I want to pay off this debt. And they build that stuff in there because for them, the character isn't real and isn't going to behave as a real person would, regardless of the fantasy of the fact that there are no dungeons, no dragons, no spaceships like that. They want that because that guides them on how they're going to play.
What's my motivation? What is my motivation?
Exactly.
And action. Hold on.
Why am I
What is my motivation?
And I think that as hacky as we use that, what's my motivation, to be like this arrogant thing. And I remember back in when White Wolf first came out, I was actually used to deride people who were playing the storyteller system. Oh, what's my motivation? I play vampire. I need a motivation. And, in AD&D, the motivation was I need to get shit, man. I need to get loot and do things so I can survive in this world. There was motivations. And maybe that's your character's motivation. But for those guys in my group anyway, a lot of people I see, if their character has something that they're after, they as a player are more invested. Does that bother you, Sean, or do you? I personally don't. That's something I don't need. I think I'm actually I'm a cheap date when it comes to that. I don't need all that. I'll make that up as I go. I'm like, hey, take me out. That's fine. We'll hang out. We're going to play D&D. Sure. What are we doing? Oh, we're in Forgotten Realms, this, that, and the other thing. I watch the rest of the group and I find a niche and I just dive in and take it.
I don't need it necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps. Cyberpunk Red's a good example. So I'll create this character because he'll be the fixer. So he'll be the wheelin' dealin' character. And then I'll think of, because in Cyberpunk Red, I mean, you're going through these connections and you're like, okay, who's the one person that did you wrong?
Yep.
Right? There's these open-ended questions. You put them down and you're thinking like, okay, I could see this and I could see that. And Jimmy did a good job of incorporating a couple of those. But I also go to a point where it's like, then the situation in the game starts and you're put into situations and then you're like, I am not sure if this is the character. And it's not even like, oh, I probably should have picked more of a fighter than a bard. It's not really that. It's the concept might change. Like maybe I picked, Max Stonewall, right?
Yeah.
And then I picture her as Jessica Jones, and then she later becomes Jessica Rabbit, like for whatever reason. Like it's just, that's an extreme, mind you, but it's similar in that capacity where it's like, yeah, there's elements of this character that I could kind of jam on, but because we're doing X and Y, I would have never picked this character to be in these specific situations.
So does that throw you out then and then make you want to either remake the character, do something different?
Yeah, a little bit. It gets weird, kind of disjointed a little bit, and
that's why. Sorry, go.
I was just gonna say it doesn't throw me off my game too much, but it depends on how long it stays in there. Like, and it's kind of, I'm not explaining.
Well, I can tell you right now, I got a couple of guys in my crew. Nick is one, and Lenny will do it too. Like, I'm walking this character away. Why? They don't fit anymore. They've accomplished their goal. I don't feel it. I want something different. You got it. Off you go. And the reason I'm bringing this up in a way is that I've got a couple of guys I play with, a few of my regular crew, and I've played this and with other people who don't care about that stuff at all. Like, they are there to game. i.e., they're going to play their character. They are Fightor from Fightor Land. Their parents were killed by orcs and they hate orcs. Other people are there because they like playing wizards or they want to be a space wizard or whatever it is. They're there to play, just hang out with their friends and game. And for them, the believability, and this is just a theory I have not like pried into any of these individuals. I think the believability is the believability of everyone around them. They're almost like audience members in a way. Like when you're watching a movie and it's this wonderful movie and you feel drawn into the story or the thing you're reading or whatever it is, and they have partial connections to it, but they're picking all their energy off of everybody else being incredibly invested, right? And once everyone else is really invested, once Lenny's in and Save is in and Alpha's in and so on, then JR's like, yeah, I'm cool. That's good. I'm having fun. Really? Yeah, no, it's great. You know, you into your character? Totally love my character. But like, you're looking at him, you're like, I can't get you to list a goal. You don't have anything you care about. Why? What everybody else does. Why not you? And I think it's because JR just doesn't care. It's not really, it doesn't help him get into the world, make it believable or whatever. That's not why he's doing it. If he has a goal or something, it's because, well, that'll help me level up. He's very mechanical in that way. Or he'll say, oh, that sounds like a neat thing to have. The sword of ultimate power that rules the world. Yeah, I'd like that. That sounds neat. Right? But he's not going to make his character that says, want to find the sword of ultimate power to rule the world because of this. He's not going to have that. You know, his goals and reasons are very vague and open, and he likes them that way. Where I am going to look at it and say, oh, what is everybody doing? I'm going to dive in. I'll be this guy. I'll be this person. I'll build all my goals off of this because it's a niche that needs fitting, and then I'm in. But I've seriously found, and even when I've run at cons and with other people that I don't know very well, I've run into people who, as long as everybody else is really invested, they're invested. It's like this. It's an odd. And again, it's a theory I have. I don't know if it makes sense for everybody else who's ever seen it, but it's like I think you and I are kind of in the middle. Like, hey, I got a guy like Lenny who's like, if he doesn't have a goal, he's going to find one, make one. Nick needs this. They really want to get into it. You, my buddy Alpha, and I, and other folks. I remember playing with Tom Flanagan from Knights of the Night a number of times, and Tom would be like, I have an idea. I'm going to see what I need to do. Very much like you and I were just talking about. He'd see what's going on. He's going to fit right in here because this is perfect. This I could be the glue that holds this whole group together by taking this piece, or I could be the foil for the group by doing this other thing. So that's cool. But I've legitimately seen some folks who they're into the game, they're into the world. It's as real gets to them in the moment. They're immersed in everything, but they don't need a whole heap and hell of a lot. And I have found in my experience that if I try to push that person and make them give me 5 past histories of you, give me a reason why you hate this character, give me, tell me this stuff, and I try to force those connections or so on and so forth, they have no desire to do those things. That's not what makes them have fun gaming, which is probably why some of those folks don't like certain game systems when I bring them up, like, it doesn't sound like fun. I think in the root is like, I don't want to get into that because I don't give 2 shits about it.
Well, there are 2 distinguishable camps in RPGs, specifically with fantasy. I think that it comes up more. It's more prominent, like even and most of that derives out of the OSR kind of space, versus maybe more typically found in 5th edition, where 5th edition you might have a background, and that's part of your character generation. There's folks that play OSR, older school stuff. They can still do that. Not all of them are like, this is the way it should be played. There's
no. There's different approaches. That's right. Fine.
But some of them are, you don't worry about that. It's done through play. Like you start out with as nobody. You don't need all that background because when you're 6th level, that's all the background were the first 5 levels.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I like that.
All the adventures that you've had and this and that. And, that's not a bad way to approach things. And I think those types of games lend themselves to people changing their characters maybe more. And I don't even mean like, I'm going to re-roll my character. Like, I'm a fighter, but I want to be a wizard.
there's no preconceived notion. Like, I don't know I made. I rolled this random thing.
Right.
I'm a dwarven thief.
Yes.
We'll see what happens from here.
Right.
And they legit see what happens, and they could end up
exactly.
Yeah.
But there is also a piece of it where those decisions aren't as important if you're not playing, in my opinion, like something like Cyberpunk Red, where you're filling like the fixer, the driver, the wheelman, and the fixer, and the decker, and the hacker, and you get those pieces. Now somebody would say, but Sean, you would get the same thing in fantasy because you have classes. You got magic user, you got thief, you got fighter,
Correct.
and they all cleric. I don't know if they do play important roles and they are classes for a specific reason. But if I'm playing face man fixer in a modern RPG and I start playing and realize, well, I don't really want to be the talky guy all the time, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, especially if you said, well, there's 5 of you playing, and one of you has to be this, one has to be this, one has to be this. You're like, I don't want to do that anymore. Fuck.
Now, in fantasy, one could argue the same, and I would just say, all right, well, in the story or in your travels, if you want to become a paladin or a holy person,
multi-class,
then you could multi-class, you could dual class, and you just make that move. Or, the GM says, okay, now you're a cleric, and you move laterally to the next level in cleric and start out at first level cleric, and you're fighter's 5th level. So yeah, multi-classing. But anyways, I mean, so I think there's those two dynamics, and I could go either way depending on what the game is. Sometimes they get in the way. Like if you get into these motivations, find your own motivation through play, maybe.
You can. You absolutely can.
If you're the game master like Brett, that throws him the bone, and hopefully somebody will pick it up and run with it.
Yeah. I think I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think, so the reason I mentioned this entire topic was like, okay, what the hell do I need to really get involved? And I started thinking about the people I've played with and am playing with, and my kids I play with, and so on. And some folks really need like a clear motivation or goals and so forth, and to help them get involved. They will pick goals. I'll pick up my buddy Nick again, for example. So he'll have a goal, and that goal is a personal one, and it doesn't necessarily need to even tie into the campaign, right? But he has a personal goal, and that personal goal could be, quit drinking. I want to retire to Vegas and be a blackjack dealer. I want whatever the hell that person wants. His character wants the thing. And he doesn't tie it specifically because he's waiting to see how he can tie it. He's like, there's always a good way to take this personal thing and make it part of something or other. I'll fit that in as I go. My buddy Lenny wants to understand more about the game, and then he starts making goals and objectives. He's got maybe a hint of what he thinks it might be based on the bumpers and the session 0 stuff. But about session 3, he's going to come at me with, okay, I want to do this. I've got these goals. That's how he's going to operate. Alpha is going to be more like you or I, like, hey, guess what? We're playing with this group for a while. I found out they need one of these. Guess what I'm doing? I'm doing that now. And then they kind of morph in. And I think it's interesting to me when I look at it, not just from I could be bold and say this is a driver for why people like or don't like certain types of games and so forth. I think it does play a little bit because I'm looking at a game and I'm like, well, why don't you play this particular role-playing game, Brett? It seems like it should totally do X, Y, or Z. And I will offhandedly say I don't like this mechanic, or I could do that myself, or whatever. And sometimes I wonder if I don't like X or I don't feel drawn to that thing because the way it's doing the thing, whatever that happens to be, doesn't make me believe. Because I want the world to be real. I want to feel this. I want to have this feeling, and so on and so forth. I don't like the way that it jars me in some way, shape, or form. And I think one of the other interesting pieces is that when you're at a table, and we'll pick on your standard D&D game, if you have somebody, Kojo's mentioned this, right, where he likes to kind of make the character as it goes. That's part of like developing through play and so forth. So you get a guy like Kojo at the table who wants to do that. And I got a guy like Nick who wants to have a high level gold, and I got Lenny who wants to do this, and I've got somebody else who wants to do this other thing. I think there is a and we can make session 0 like take 18 hours depending how we do this, but there are pieces and parts of that where it's I'm questioning the wisdom of myself sometimes. I used to do this more, where I would try desperately to make sure everyone had the same level of involvement, because I thought that would really help. Like, he has 3 backgrounds. You need 3 backgrounds. You need 3 backgrounds. You need. And frankly, some of my players don't give a fuck about any of that. That's not why they're there. That doesn't make it believable to them. That doesn't make the character more fun. They already have the level of belief. They walked in the door and I said, "Oh, it was, it's Cyberpunk Red. I'm playing a Cyberpunk game. I don't need anything more. I'm in. Cyberpunk's real. Done." And their brain just clicks. They're like, "I'm in." And somebody else and he or she's going to say, "This is what I need." And this other person, they're going to say, "Yeah, but what about," or whatever. I think it's interesting when we start thinking about like why players gel or don't gel or might not like certain things or shy away from demands and so forth. I think sometimes it's not only just, I think it's part of the style of play in a way, right? What do I need to believe? What do I need to believe? And how do I like to play my characters? Do I like to develop them during the game, as Kojo has talked about with us? Or do I like to have a pre-gen character with a very set goals and set I don't know.
It's there's not a wrong way, but
no, there's not.
But I think, I mean, I am all about I'm changing it up, man. Forbidden Lands is like something completely different, but I say that because we get hung up on some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, but where I'm getting here, dude, is like if you've got a table of 4 people,
yes,
and you've got four different needs for the belief, 4 different needs to really buy in, right? That buy in, the verisimilitude. I believe in your game world, man. I believe in this Forbidden Lands game. I'm going to make character decisions based on blah blah blah. They really grok it, and there could have 4 or 5 totally different ways, and some of them could almost be not antithetical, but they're almost like they could be opposite in some way, shape, or form. And I think sometimes we will look at a player who doesn't seem as invested in some way.
A good example,
and we'll say, "Oh, I gotta work with her," or they just don't seem invested. What do I have to do to pull it out? And we quiz them and we grill them, and they look at you and go, "I'm having fun. If you ask me one more fucking time, I'll stab you."
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
An example I would see is a person who is overly social, but they are in a survival hex crawl with nobody around them for hundreds of miles. And so they could talk to the fellow party members, but they want to be in, that's why some people like I have, that's what I find appealing in like Call of Cthulhu, because it's not go out, find treasure,
yep,
kill a monster. It's investigation, and there's a lot of role play behind that, in my opinion, in the games that I appreciate, which is funny because I'll run Forbidden Lands. And sure, they'll come across maybe a rival adventuring party or somebody in the middle of nowhere, and there's that opportunity. But it's not a social gathering. It's not a 1920s ball where they're going there and they actually are playing socialite as a class or debutante, right?
Or even like you're a D&D 5e game, which is more, instead of kill monsters and take their stuff, it's around saving something, save the world, save the town, save a thing. That's
right.
I've got different. We can talk about that in another show, but I'm not old school killing monsters to get gear.
Right.
I am fighting the big bad to save the world.
Right. Save the cheerleader, save the world.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit, it's very,
but it's so that mismatch can happen. And I agree, but there's some people that'll get into that and they'll just like not care. Like they'll put it behind them and they'll play and they'll be just fine, and it won't be the game they're like, "Oh, this is so great." They'll just say it was an okay game, and that's because they're playing a game and a character that's probably not something they're either A, used to, or B, preferring?
I think that the believability is part of the buy-in, right? If I can get you to believe in Avalon, when I give you your character or you make your character, and
this place doesn't freaking exist anywhere.
Yeah, if I can, but you know what I'm saying is if I can.
How do they feed their people? There's no farms. It's all in a city.
I've explained that. Read the book.
Sorry.
So anyway, point is, if I do it and I say, okay, this Avalon setting is about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then I show you examples and I help you do whatever. There's a piece of it though, when I've started doing this more and more as I'm looking at myself and kind of trying to introspectively look at the other people I'm playing with and realize that this person doesn't need what this person needs in order to believe and really buy in, because belief equals buy-in, and buy-in equals verisimilitude, and everybody's singing and doing the right thing. We're all on the same page of the hymnal or whatnot. And I have made the mistake in the past, and I think sometimes maybe it's not just me. I'm assuming it's other people too, where we will look.
It's just me.
You. God damn
it's
it.
Just you. I've never heard of this ever happening to anybody else.
No, I quit. Wow, I suck as bad as I thought I did. That's why I'm here. Get better. Anyway, when seeing that, because we've talked about different player expectations, and I think this is yet another expectation that players can have. Like, what do I need to believe? What do I need for buy-in and to help maintain the tone, the verisimilitude? And we could say, well, so-and-so doesn't seem to have the same level, or this person is really into it. I don't know if some people don't. I think there's a lot of different ways that people would show you, tell you, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's worth understanding that it's going to be different for different people. And when you're playing with a group, that's one more thing to think about, right? And when someone says, I'm not having that much fun, be it a Cyberpunk Red not having that much fun, Star Wars not having that much fun, or a Conan game or whatever game, it's just not working. My buddy, buddy of mine was running a 2D20 Conan game, and I had a hard time with it. And the reason I had a hard time with it was because from an IP perspective, I know that world way, way better than he did. No shade on him for not being a Robert E. Howard nut like I am. I'm sure there's people who know it even better than I do, which is totally legit. But the way he did it, I found in that world, I needed it to maintain the tone that I expected. He shifted the tone. The other players didn't have a problem with it. I did. I personally, and I talked to him about it, I'm like, you've broken the tone of what this is. Yeah, I thought I'd do something different. I wish you would have told me that. Right. Should have told me that up front. I could have figured that out. Right. That was paraphrasing, but that was kind of just the conversation. I needed X. And I think it's similar to when my buddy Nick runs Star Wars, or when I play with you. I know enough about it to be dangerous. And that's where I've realized, more thinking about that, I tend to play almost a background character in a way until I figure out what the tone is, and then I can lean into it, kind of developing my character Kojo style in play. We're like, what's this going on? Okay, this is the tone we're going for. Everybody's good? We're all good? Game Master's good? I'm leaning in now. Where I reserve that, and effectively, I am not really bought in yet. Once my character, I'm like, this is what we're really doing, I'm in, and now I'm golden. Now my verisimilitude goes through the roof. I buy in. This is a real character. I start making in-character decisions, better in-character decisions from my perspective, anyway. Anyhow, we're hitting, I think, terminal repeat here as we are wont to do. But I'm just wondering if this is, like I said, it was a concept I had. I was thinking about it like, well, there's different levels of belief that different people need to buy in. And if nothing else, my understanding of what I need, I'm like, that's pretty handy for me to figure that out. Noodle that out and say, this is what Brett needs. If I'm playing, this is how I like to play. And if somebody asks me, are you having fun? I say, hey, Hank, no, I'm having a good time. Here's what I'm doing. I'm waiting to figure out how everybody else is going to gel so I can find the gap and I can fill it. That's how I like to play. I have a good time playing that way. And yeah, I can maybe do something different, or if it's something I really get up front. But I'm new to this Star Wars crazy dice thing, so how about I slide in this way? Wherever the case is. So, anyway, it helps when I see people and they explain things like that. It helps sometimes just to figure out that when I'm doing a good job as game master, everyone's having fun or whatever. So let us know what you think. How crazy is Brett? About this in particular. You good, Sean?
I'm good, dude. Let's get into die roll.
Do it.
Die roll, 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to bring and share with you. Got a couple this week. There's the chat there for you. The first one is, where am I? Why am I? Here we go. There we go. I lost my notes. That's fantastic. What's the first one, Brett?
The
Recklin Run.
Recklin Run.
Oh man.
Post-apocalyptic solo hero series game.
Yeah, that's there. Let's see if I can get it on the right page here.
Kickstarter. This is a Todd, Mr. Crapper from Broken Rulers, working on this.
Yeah, he's involved. So this one is 8 days to go as of this recording, fully backed. Look, he even said in the message, like, this doesn't need help backing, but he's working on it. And if you're interested, it's not a role-playing game, but nonetheless. And it's Renegade Studios, who are doing Marvel and G.I. Joe.
Awesome.
So he's involved in that.
So link in the show notes to that little Kickstarter going on. Todd's good people, so always like to help out good people.
One-player card game with a campaign mode about taking on the bosses and their crew in battles across the Wreckland.
Awesome. That's fun.
Number 2 is King Gold. We posted this. It's been posted on our forums and on our Discord. Beer Leaguer has put this out amongst a couple other things down below. But it's a one-sheet for 5e.
It's a pamphlet
adventure. Yeah.
Like literally trifold pamphlet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Level 1 through 3 characters. You could play in a bar or kitchen, which I'm not sure why he picks bar or kitchen, but nonetheless.
I like drinking in my kitchen.
Sure. It's the first in a new series of standalone pamphlet quests, traces the hobby back to its weird roots when a night of fun could be had using just a few pages of printed material. King Gold isn't just a love letter to an old format. It's a solution for dungeon masters who want to get to the table and go using a prefabricated adventure that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a one-page story overview, hexcrawl wilderness intro, all-in-one pamphlet with every tool a DM needs, stat and monster tables conveniently placed, full-size unmarked map visuals for online play, and it's coming in at the ripe price of $1.95.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Looks pretty cool.
Go. Yeah. Pick that one up if you're so inclined. If you're wanting to do a one night 5e adventure. That's it. There you go. That's all we had for die roll.
Very cool.
What are we talking about next week, Brett?
Well, Sean, I initially had rules as a map, and then moving on to story and drama. I'm actually thinking about taking the story and drama one and bumping it up a bit. I'm going to talk to you offline from here. I think that one might be a little more interesting.
Rules and a map?
Rules as a map.
Rules
and then next up after that was going to be story and drama as a topic, and I think I might take that one and move it up a bit. So it'll be one of those two, for sure.
One of those two
topics
for sure, he says.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic, man. Well, great. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody that live here in the chat. Good to see everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it. If you've found anything entertaining or of value, make sure you give us a like. Otherwise, we'll be recording this every other Monday at 8 p.m. Central Time here on the YouTubes. Otherwise, you can find this episode at your podcatcher of choice in our flagship audio show. I think that is it for this one. Otherwise, sweet. I am Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS produced with help from the following BSers: Joe Swick, Old School DM, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Chris Steele, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Mark Tasaka, Mirko Froelich, Pure Mongro, Brett Pazinski, Brandon Barnes, Eileen Barnes, Dan LaValle, CW Mellencamp, Victor Wyatt, Craig Huber, Roger Braslett, Stefan Dragonspawn, Jared Rasher, Finnulf, Ray Otis, Jim Fitzpatrick, Old Scoozer Roleplaying, Curtis Takahashi, Larry Hout, Ron Bishop, Mark Richmond, Chad Glayman, Craig, Howard Bishop, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Angus, Eric Salzwedel, George Sedgwick, Robert Nemeth, Brian Kurtz, Laramie Wall, Eric Avia, Andy Olson, Jeff Seifert, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Niall Diamond, Aaron Relia, Jeff Goad, Aaron Coleman, Brian Rumble, Rich Wishan, David F. Baylog, Harrigan, Melissa Bashinsky, H.N., Colcago, Eric Tavola, Hoos Carl, Yorkis Rex, Ghost GM, Mike Hess Jr., Rory Weston, Jim Ingram, Daniel Garrett, Eric Frankhouse Presents, Phil McClory, Adam Grosjean, Jay Plata, Ed Nyes, The Duke in Purple, Isaiah Aries Christian, Larry Hollis, Craig Shipman, Todd Sharp, Orcus Dorcas, Chris Shore, Michael O'Holland, Wayne Peacock, Mike Coleman, Miniature Master, Kevin Keneally, Zagrave, Vornak, Farty McButterpants, Andrew Lear, Craig Chunglo, Eric Lunsford, Ty Prunty, Feeling Good Lewis, Ziga Paradzik, Nick Westbrook, John Mahoney, Crystal Eggstead, Zalea, Zwiefer, Hypnocode, and Kelly Ness. Kelly Ness. Get it? Kelly Ness. Hey, thanks for all your support, everyone. Do us a favor. If you know a friend that might get a kick out of us, let them know to pull us up in their podcatcher of choice. Do a search for Gaming and BS and have them subscribe, or at least listen to one episode. I mean, even 10 minutes of a random encounter would probably get them hooked, but, whatever it takes. Thanks, BSers.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.